Hey, good morning, good evening, good afternoon, folks. It's V, the gorilla economist, the monetary monkey of mayhem, the Optimus primate himself. With the one and only Algo Cowboy working the airwaves and making sure the broadcast coming out crispy and clean. You know what I mean? Check us out, roguenews.com. Follow us on X at ESW Rogue News, at ESW Rogue News. And we have with us a return guest who, at this point, doesn't need any introduction whatsoever. It is the one and only EM Burlingame. You can find all his links over in the description box, and he's going to be running the gambit, the absolute intelligentsia of what is happening behind the scenes, especially when you see the Financialist kill chain and where we are and how things will transpire. And with that being said, Nick, EM, good morning, guys. How are you?
Doing great. How you doing, V?
I'm doing good, man. Just running around, putting out fires. Another day. Thank God it's Friday. The weekend is almost here, so we get to get a little bit of a respite. But I'm doing great. I can't complain. How are you guys?
Good.
Fantastic.
Yeah, EM's got out the you got out the jumper cables this morning to get your internet going, didn't you?
Yeah, it didn't start, so still dead.
Oh, wow.
Thank God for hotspots on phones.
Yeah. Wow. You running this off a hotspot?
Yeah.
You must have a hell of a hotspot. I tried that.
That's
We were just
hell of
talking
a
about this.
hotspot.
Yeah, I tried it 2 weeks ago, and no luck on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, I live in the sticks, so it is what it is. So I guess we'll just kick it off. EM, you wrote a really great article recently, and it has to do with basically, and I want to be delicate in how I say this. Nah, screw it. Let's not be delicate. All the immigration is putting a certain type of people, and a lot of them are good. They want to work. They come here to the U.S. or maybe Europe to have a better life. But there is most likely a contingent in there that may not be so good. And there's a lot going to this. So, EM, I'm just going to turn it over to you and let you really explain it so I just don't ruin it for you or for everybody else.
Yeah, so historically, well, everything that the financialists do is in accordance with contracts and law. Now, it might be laws that they helped get created 100 years ago or 30 years ago or 300 years ago, like as in the Peace of Westphalia and the Inglorious Revolution, right, to create the legal frameworks. But everything that the financialists do is in accordance with contracts and law because that's all they have. They don't want the ownership, the actual title ownership of the physical assets because you have to, by contract law, you have to physically possess that. And you have to be able to exercise physical possession and ownership of that asset, that land, whatever it is. Now, they can use mercenaries to do that. They can use nation-state militaries, whatever, armies, private armies, et cetera, but they have to take physical possession. Now, they don't necessarily need you've heard that term. Sorry, white cat, black shirt. You heard the term possession's 9/10 of the law.
Correct.
Well, it is. The other 10th is the title, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
it's a Napoleonic law, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I don't know, but this goes back long before that, right? Rights of possession, et cetera, et cetera. This is old ancient contract law. Point being is that if the lands and assets of the West have been sold off in private transactions by the financialist, and who has the cash and liquidity over the last 20 years, maybe 30 years to be able to make such a purchase, well, that would be the oil kingdoms and the cartels. But they have to take possession, right?
Yeah.
So you can have title registered in some, in these old 300, 400-year-old banking networks. You can have title, and you can have the encumbrances to the titles, right? Which is really what the financialists want, because what the financialists want is they want custodial rights, right? They want the fees from the custodial rights of all of the contracts and licenses and titles, et cetera. And they constantly change the laws and rules and jurisdictions, and they do all these transactions, et cetera, to really hide who holds the actual title, the right to the title, and how those titles are encumbered that gives those individuals these rights.
Are you talking about the spider's web and the private trust and stuff?
Spider's web is certainly part of it, but the first major, this started in Venice and then Amsterdam, and then really took off in the city of London, and it's how BlackRock, which is owned by State Street and Vanguard, have stock in 90% of the control, basically, of 90% of the companies listed on the exchanges. So the banks and the financial institutions want these custodial rights. They make a lot of fees off these custodial rights, and then they keep changing contracts, titles. They do these transactions between, owners and buyers, which are maybe not necessarily not the same person back behind, right? 2-3 layers deep. And they make a good amount of money at doing that for the last 300 years. So they want the custodial rights, and then they want the transactions, right? All of the transaction fees. They don't want to own the actual assets. I mean, look at BlackRock. It doesn't own the 22 trillion or whatever.
No, correct.
It's just custodian for it. Well, they've made $80 billion being custodians, right? So it pays well. So that's how these systems work. And I can't remember the gentleman's name, but someone here recently stated that every time there's a great theft, there's a new registry that's rolled out, right? And that's in the Financialist kill chain, which is the asset identification, right? And how does it get codified? Well, who has actual title to that? Well, what is blockchain? What is cryptocurrency? It's the new registry. So
Yes,
just for a massive theft in history, right? And you want a perfect example of it is the Doomsday Book of William the Conqueror.
What is that? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no. So the Doomsday Book was an audit of all the lands, all the titles, all of the assets of the British Isles, excepting Ireland. And it was very extensive. And a lot of the titles, a lot of the lands were contested. A lot of the titles were contested. There was a lot of theft, but whatever went into the Doomsday Book from there on was the title and the titular owners.
You want to know something on a sidetrack here when we're talking about titles and whatnot?
Mm-hmm.
If you remember the savings and loan scandal that occurred in the 80s, right?
Yeah.
And a gentleman that I've encountered he was pretty much the point man that Dr. William F. Black used to uncover the SNL scandal.
Mm-hmm.
And he was also the same point guy, and I'm not going to mention his name, starts with a G. He also was involved in uncovering a lot of the mortgage fraud that occurred early on in 2006, prior to the 2008 financial collapse. And this is the guy who pushed out the concept that began to germinate and permeate within the alt media universe about the DTCC, the Depository Trust and Clearing Commission. He was also the clear origin point, and nobody knows this guy. But he is very close cohorts with William F. Black. And this is the same gentleman that uncovered through various investigatory abilities and capabilities and court orders and this, that, and the other, the very name of Seed and Company, in which is basically every single electronic mortgage registration that is in the United States, every single stock where you're a quote unquote, you don't really own the stock, you're just a beneficiary owner whose benefit ownership to the stock can be nullified at any point without any explanation.
Yes.
All of that is held by Seed and Company. And Seed and Company, no one knows who they are. The very best guesstimates are the linkages to the City of London Corporation. That's where we're looking at as one of the prime targets here. And it was this gentleman that highlighted that. And it just goes to show, EM, that this is everything is financialized. And from my experience of working on the institutional side of finance, and I will tell you guys this, everything is financialized. You get a speeding ticket at your local court. That's financialized. That's derivatized. That's being openly traded on the back end in Wall Street. It's a crazy, crazy game. And at the end of the day, it's a wealth extraction scheme.
That's
100%.
exactly what it is. It's exactly what it is. So what I've come to firmly believe is that we already own nothing, but we're not happy.
Yeah.
And we haven't
That's a
owned
good point.
anything for hundreds of years. There's only been the illusion of it.
Correct.
And they'll let you have the illusion as long as they're building up. But everybody should watch the movie Jupiter Ascending. It's a fun little sci-fi movie, but it's got a very
it was with
dark.
Channing Tatum, wasn't it?
Channing Tatum. Yeah, I thought it was kind of silly, but I wasn't looking for any symbolism in it.
Now I have to go back and watch it now.
What do? They build up these human populations, planets in this case, and then they harvest them all for life-giving, life rejuvenating, right? Well, that's what it's the financialist kill chain. Only instead of planets at this point, they're harvesting peoples.
Mm-hmm.
So they'll let them build up, store up, take as much as they can, extract as much as they can. And then as those people start to age or reduce, they just wipe them out in a major war, diseases, whatever the hell it is. They need to remove them, right? They want to collapse the step 7 of the kill chain. They need to collapse everything, collapse the society and the civilization and the state or the kingdom that the people are on dramatically in that process, which can take 70, 80 years, like they did with the communists in Russia and the communists in China, and as they've done elsewhere. Then they come in and they buy massive depreciation happens. You don't have the people there to fight you for the assets, and they come in and they exercise their title, their rights and privileges to the title that they've held for, in their private agreements for who knows how long. Well, the problem is, and this gets back to the Greeks and to the gates of Thermopylae, right? The hot gates of Thermopylae. Molon Labe, come and take them. What were they saying? They weren't saying their weapons. Of course, you had to get through those. They were saying their lands of Greece, right? These financialists have a fundamental flaw and weakness, and that is that they have to physically take possession.
Yes. Otherwise, they're playing the paper game and hoping that you, as a unknowing victim, believes that the paper has more power than the actual underlying asset.
And all that's breaking down. So what are they doing now? They're transitioning to crypto and this tokenized world, this vastly complex system. They've got their financialist religion, the tokenization thing is, so if the financialists have their own religion, right, the religion of finance, as I've laid out in several articles, this would be the tokenization of assets is because if you have physical title, somebody can actually go physically get that if they know where to look and they got the willingness to do it. But tokenization, this type of digitization, right, in blockchain, how are you going to go take all that, how are you going to recover that fully so that artificial title and claim is wiped out once and for all? Right?
Speaking of financialist religion, right? I think what they're trying to do is to sell the populace a new religion. If you ever, listen to a guy like Yuval Noah Harari, or I might have said it, Novel Yuval, whatever it is, you'll have nothing to be happy. We'll give them drugs and video games. And now you're hearing all this stuff about just connecting people, giving them their little, Oculus where they can just sit there and basically, and forgive the term, mentally masturbate for the rest of their life. And, I'm seeing a lot of that stuff kind of pop up, and it seems like the crypto, whole thing kind of feeds into that, right?
Correct.
Well, it's techno utopia. It's all techno utopia. And I'm watching little YouTube videos pop up here. They've disappeared of late, probably because I don't watch them. But it's this articulation that quantum computing and AI are finding interdimensional beings in data. Mm-hmm. And they're very slick videos that are up on YouTube. Very well done. Somebody's funding this, right? And it's intended to create, one, the lie that AI even works and isn't just, clever monkey linguistics. Take robotics out, because robotics is a separate, special targeted field. And that's not really AI anyways. Those are expert systems. The other one is to try and articulate the quantum computing works, and quantum computing is real. And now they're binding those together to get all the, the ones they can't fool with tech and science. Now they're trying to get this religious aspect to get all the woo-woo. So it's a techno-utopian religious belief system, but down underneath of it, in this context, it's still Catholicism. It's still the financialist religion.
Right. So we're transitioning into some sort of a techno-feudalism.
Correct. And this conversation, techno-feudalism, was had when I was much younger. Well, yeah, much younger. 25 years ago in Silicon Valley, I was at the socials with the techies and, the big techies at the time and the investors, et cetera. And techno-feudalism was the conversation.
That's what they want.
So
that's the natural progression. Go ahead, Cowboy.
Sure. So do you think that this fake reality that they're trying to get us, and you hear a lot of this stuff coming out of many different areas too, not just the, they're trying to dispossess us of any real wealth, right? So you're talking about possession of real wealth, and we might want to get down to what that actually is.
They already have all of that. We're just, the whole system, the whole economic system is an illusion.
Yes,
so
it is.
Above, anything that is beyond food, water, and a place to live is an illusion. It's something we made up. It's something, comforts. And it's the pursuit of comforts.
Yeah, and it's an agreed upon consensus.
That's right. So
how is that different philosophically than any time in history?
Well, what I'm getting at is that base reality is still here. All of the things, all of the nice stuff that we've been able to do, we've been able to do that by participating, as V says, in the shared illusion, right? That these things have reality, not, the tangible things, but the businesses, the companies, the entities, the structures, the relationships, the financing, all of that. We made all that up, every single bit of it, and we're constantly remaking it. It only works if we all participate in it. And the way in which you get people to, monkeys, because that's what we are, to get monkeys to participate is comforts. You give them comforts and the illusion of ownership, the illusion of, possible greater participation. And what do they get for that? More comforts.
Yeah.
Right?
So drugs and video games,
Ferraris, nice houses, right? So it's not that it doesn't come with benefits. It's just that there are times when they move to harvest populations because the populations are seeing through the lie, the illusion. They're maxed out on consumption. They're maxed out on their ability to take on debt. They're starting to see the machinations and the bullshit and the malevolence and the evil, right? Mutilating kids' genitals.
Yeah.
Right. And the people are starting to see through, and they're starting to be willing to give up their comforts to fix the problem. You got to harvest them then, because once you start looking, and I spent 25 years meditating on one statement, which was all is illusion. I meditated on that one statement every day for 25 years because I did, and boy, it took me down all kinds of paths. I started when I was very young. Point being is that once the populace starts to peer beneath the hood of modern society, they start to see these things because they're not hidden. They're right out in the open. You don't actually own anything. You're not in control of anything. You have no power, right? There's one exception, and the one exception is Malone Lake, right? They have to come and we have to either willingly allow them to continue to do this, or they have to force us to. And when it gets to a certain level of darkness that everybody's seeing, again, like Epstein, which that's a small thing compared to what's really happening. That's a horrible thing. Don't want to take away from it, but it's tiny compared to what's really going on. right? And the reality of the world. And once people start to look and they start to be willing to give up their comforts, the elites are in real danger. So what do? They transfer the title of all the assets to somebody else that has the physical manpower to defend, so that the Malone Labe happens, right? They come for it because they have them. That's why they took the British Isles and the English, and then the Americans through there, is because for the last 300 years we've had the manpower to fight, to go take things. We don't anymore. Now we still have enough to defend and prevent them from taking from us, but we don't have the power, force projection power anymore to go take. So I didn't mean to interrupt you, Nick.
No, that's, you were kind of actually answering my question there. So what I find interesting is I'm always into solutions, right? Because identifying the problem is pretty easy. Even communists can identify the problem properly, as Tom Luongo is so fond of saying. They don't really have very good solutions. You could even say the same thing about your pure libertarians, right? And, if we're going to kind of go down the path of everything is an illusion, nothing is real, not a lot of people can handle that. I mean, that takes a certain mind space to be okay with that. I'm not going to disagree with it. I know people in the audience already have, and that's fine. But what I would want to know specifically is, and we'll get into more of the problem, we'll get into more of how they're going to try to do what they're going to do. And we need to know the problem to find the solution, right? The core of it for me, though, is like, I have this pair of glasses right here. I hold it in my hand. I use it. This is a possession. This is real, and it's wealth. So is the fork in my drawer and the salt shaker. These are all real things, and they are in my possession. My house technically is in my possession, although it'd be very hard to they could just change the title on my house. But it's still in my possession. So is my truck. And of course, I think it would be a pretty interesting operation for little old me, for someone to come and try to take my truck and take everybody else's truck in my neighborhood. I think that gets kind of far down a very strange path. But I think that trying to take people's money out of the bank, trying to change titles to land, I think that's kind of more akin to what you might be talking about. Under any circumstance, where do we draw the line on what is our possession and how do we defend against this thievery of said possessions?
I want to add one thing real quick, and I get what EM is definitely saying. From studying the credit markets, studying financialization for as long as I have, I can honestly tell you every aspect of your life is fake. Every aspect of your life is made up. You don't own anything. You buy a car, like I own cars, right? But unless I pay a registration fee to a state, I can't drive it. Yeah. Unless I renew my license every year or every 2 years or whatever, I can't drive it, right?
Yeah.
You see, they can change. Yeah, they can change. Yeah, you got to have insurance. You can't drive it. Yeah. They can change the title of your house, right? Or any of that. The name of the game is not, okay, we're going to change all this, we're going to financialize everything and then try to grab everything out. No. The name of the game is we have everything financialized so that once we set up our control grid, if you step out of line, it's easier to take from you. That's what this whole entire thing is about. They don't need to come physically grab anything. But having the financialization, it gives them the very permission and licensure to come grab what they want from you, whether it's your bank account, which you don't own, because, by the way, here's the deal. Your bank account is you are a lender of last resort every time you go deposit cash.
You're
right?
An unsecured
unsecured creditor. That's what you are,
yeah.
Right? You're an unsecured creditor. So you don't have anything, right? You can't own land, paying property taxes every freaking year, right? You can't own your car outright. You can own it, but you can't drive it. The whole point is control. They don't have to physically take anything, but because everything is so financialized, and this is why they can't have we can't have a strong physical economy, a strong manufacturing powerhouse or a power base, because it kills the parasite of financialization. Financialization has to be the overriding parasite that is sucking the life out of the host. And
Yes.
it needs to give you the illusion that you own something. That's the trickery here.
Yes.
So are you suggesting that we own nothing and we're not happy, so we should just own nothing and be happy? Is that where we're going with this?
No.
No, not at all.
No, this isn't, you don't
that was
do
rhetorical
some
in a way.
Luddite burn the world down kind of thing. It's, the peoples that own things are the ones that got rid of the financialists. They didn't get rid of economics. They didn't get rid of banking. They didn't get rid of the law, the rule of law, in our particular case, common law, which is really solid. It's got to be cleaned up a bit because of activist judges, et cetera, right? Or just criminal judges, unconstitutional, illegal judges. It's probably a better way of saying it, right? So it's not burn the whole world down. It's remove the financialist. And oh, by the way, we weren't financialized like this until we weren't even capable of being financialized like this until 1971 when we went to fiat.
Yep.
That's where everything became artificial at that point. Everything started to be bought with fake money. And how did they do it? They just kept deflating, printing more dollars in the form of loans and deflating the dollar value while inflating, in the artificial currency asset values and taking out as much as they can. Because what people have to realize is that everything that you have in that house that you talked about comes from your physical labor, which is a portion of your life. And you will never get that life back. It's gone. It's the most valuable asset that we have.
Yeah.
And how we could choose to expend our life in the form of labor, cognitive labor, physical labor, whatever it is, participation, physical, manual production of things, whatever. That's life that we're expending. We don't get that back. That is the most valuable resource. And they have financialized every bit of that, every aspect of it, right down to actually the functioning of metabolic processing and functioning of our cells with the crap nutrients they give us, and then the medicines and pharmaceuticals and things that, so what we have to understand is that everything that we have, everything that's around us has come to us because we've given up some portion of our life. Somebody owns that now. And what is it? And they own it in this complex weave of the legal framework, the government frameworks, the regulatory frameworks, the financial frameworks. They own every bit of it, and they take. And this is why Jupiter Ascending is so important, because it's show when you get the right framing with the movie, you're like, oh my God, it's so obvious. What are the financialists doing? They are taking life. They don't care if they give you the comforts, because they're making money off of the production, the manufacturing, the distribution, the lease, the title, the loan, whatever the hell it is, right? They're making money off of loan. They don't care about that, right? I know very, very wealthy, billionaire type financials. They drive like 20-year-old beat up Honda.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Right?
I know one that drives like a 1990 Suburban. Are you suggesting that we separate the financialism from the economy in order to be able to participate in the economy without the financialist taking our life from us?
Yes.
Okay.
We have to go back to fundamental banking, right?
And-
Local, regional, fundamental banking, where the actual title to things we know, right? And there isn't some super title somewhere from 300 years ago, et cetera. They can have that. You can go ahead and have the 1688 title from the Inglorious Revolution and any subtitle that comes from that out of the crown. Go ahead. You have to exercise it, and that means you have to take possession.
So with that, having possession, which technically I have right now, we're talking about a path to kicking out financialists. And this does kind of go into the article that you wrote recently. And forgive me, what was the title of the article? Do you remember offhand?
Yeah,
it's really great.
Yeah.
It's the Foot Soldiers
The
article.
Great Reset. Yeah,
That's the one.
Here. Yeah.
That's the very one. I even made the thumbnail based on the thumbnail of your article there. So knowing kind of what's in that article and talking about what we're talking about here, do we have a path to kicking out the financialists and their bogus titles and taking our life back?
Yes, and I I actually suspect, although I don't know, and I had a really rather interesting conversation with an Aussie for 3 hours out of nowhere yesterday that opened my eyes to something. I do. So Russia did it in the 2000s. China has done it, still working it out, finalizing it, but China's been doing it since 2012. Persia did it in the 1970s, although there's some question there. And that's, strangely enough, what was the conversation last time. It was about Persia, not Iran, Persia, the Persian peoples, right? So civilizational peoples, of which there's only 4, really. There's some strong cultural peoples, but there's only 4 civilizational peoples: Russians, Chinese, Persians, and English.
Right.
That's the only real 4 solid, no shit, linguistic, civilized, cultural, historic, over 1,000 years old, been through it all, still here, civilizational peoples. There's some other great cultural peoples like the French and the Germans, and the Germans are a whole mix of, go to Germany. Germany wasn't unified till a little over 20 years ago, 140 years ago.
Yeah.
So, excuse me. So civilizational peoples, and this is why, and I didn't quite get why, but my sense about a year ago is that we really need to wake up to the fact we're a civilizational people. And our civilization is built on a set of laws, the dooms of Alfred, right? Common law, that the king and the common man are both, that in the eyes of the law, everybody is equal in terms of how, anyways, and the separation of power and individual. So everybody's sovereign, that's the term. Everybody, to be sovereign, you have to have the right to private property. In order to have the right to private property, whether you're the king or anybody else, you have to have the right to private property, or the lowest peasant. You have to have the right to private property, because you can't be sovereign if you don't own yourself. Back to the life piece, right? And in order for those two to be real and held, you have to have a balance of power between the king, government, the princes, oligarchs, the wealthy elites, and the ones who are moving and working and operating on a different level that keeps all this stuff going, right? This complexity going, and then the people. You have to have those 3 principles are at the core of our civilization, going right back to the beginning. They were specifically codified and instantiated, and they've held all of this time. So getting back to the fundamentals of our civilization, getting back, which also gets back to no more of this 2-tiered legal system, which is really a financialist legal system. Getting back to sound banking, which is local regional banking, and a very clear delineated distinction of who actually owns the title to the lands of the United States.
Would you suggest bringing back like a Loial title?
Yeah, that part, I'm not a title guy, so I don't know a lot about title stuff.
That's a Loial title is basically where, like right now, you can have the title to your home, but stop paying your state income tax or your property tax and see who really owns your home. Well, a Loial title means, and if I'm saying that, it might be a Loial, but I think it's a Loial. That means that the state has no claim. It doesn't matter. There's no property tax. Whatever property tax is not legal, constitutional. And this is where I begin to, there's the law, there's common law going back to the dooms of Alfred. I know maritime law fits in there somewhere, but I do believe that without the law of some kind, whether we agree with it or not, then there's not like a framework to fight legally. Yeah. And so what we have now is the Constitution. But I'm starting to digress a little bit, so maybe I'll stop right there and just go back to
one of the things, and I'm not a constitutional scholar at all. I try to keep things as simple as I can. I got old man memory, and I pay attention to a lot of things. So I try to keep, and I've got, I've had some pretty good knocks to the skull. I don't care what the hell their paper, their tokens, or their ledgers or whatever say. They have to enforce it. Well, what am I willing to fight for to prevent them from enforcing some bullshit claim? Right? Well, I'm willing to fight for these lands and our peoples, our civilization. I'm willing to fight for that. Now, here's some things I need to know, though. I need to know that we're going to adhere to the law. We're going to adhere to the Constitution, which is the greatest articulation, expression of how we organize ourselves, that the English, because the American Constitution comes out of the English Constitution and does come from the Magna Carta, and that does come from the Dunes of Alfred. And I want to know that we're going to have clear title, so that when somebody owns their house or somebody buys something and they're willing to take on some debt to do that, which is I'm taking some of my future life, bringing it here and expending it now. That's what finance really is. That's what a loan is. You are borrowing against your future life today, so you consolidate that into a large enough chunk of capital that you can acquire something that you're going to then use for all those years. I mean, that's technically what it is. Debt is borrowing against the future. And what is that future? It's not some made up mystical thing. It's your life. You're going to expend this amount of your physical life paying that debt for X amount of, in 15, 30 years in the terms of a mortgage. Why the hell would you do that if you don't know that that's going to remain your possession, unless you do something absolutely egregious that society kicks you out? That's not the word I was looking for, but right?
Excommunicates.
Well, excoriates. So the point being is that we have to get back to some fundamentals, and one of the base fundamentals is who the hell who actually owns the land of the United States.
Correct.
What is the master title, and who owns it, and what are the rights and privileges there for them, and how can that be, subordinate titles off of that? And how do we make sure that we get back to the fundamental principle of English law, of our civilization, the right to private property? You can't have the right to private property if you own nothing. I mean, by definition, it's... So,
I think in the original, Life, Liberty, Pursuit of Happiness, I think the original, it was supposed to be Pursuit of Property, and they changed it to Happiness.
Correct.
Financialists, they want you chasing comforts and happiness. They don't want you building real assets and wealth that you know that you own.
We see an interesting thing about this business of a loan basically it's giving away part of your life, right?
Well, that's the whole definition of a mortgage. It's to the death.
To the death. Yeah, and on top of that, there's word that a lot of these financialists, and especially and again, I'm going to just use the word, these jerk-offs over in like Davos, the Noel Hararis of the world who say we're hackable animals. They want to put us in like some kind of a weird electronic world where they're using our bodies somehow to
they're doing
generate money.
With the cells. Yeah, well, they're doing it with your cells right now. This slavery system is so sophisticated that the 400 to 500 trillion living cells in your body are functioning for them and making money for them.
Can you elaborate on that?
How do pharmaceuticals work? How do vaccines work? How much money do they make off of that?
Trillions. That whole entire scamdemic, we saw a $10 trillion worth of generational wealth transferred out of the hands of the people into the hands of the very elite.
Yeah.
And in terms of like, look at some of the concepts and patents that they're working on right now, right? You're talking about and again, whether it comes to fruition or not, because I know a lot of these guys who are these financialists and what. Look, a lot of it is this fantastical fantasy, but what they do have in place is this system, is this acclamy, this modern acclamy of making electronic titles and paper more valuable than the underlying asset, and giving you that illusion of ownership.
Yes.
Right? It's the
Yes.
ultimate philosopher's stone, and
yes, that's exactly.
Yeah. So, for them, it's like, if whatever they can do to pull that wool over your eyes, they're going to do it. And, we have to break through this, and we have to do it. Like you said, we have to stand on what's undergirding this, which is the land, which is the real physical stuff. That's our only protection of it. And guys like Yuval Harari, in terms of like the pharmaceutical stuff, right? They are talking about figuring out ways to harness energy from the cells. They're figuring out ways of how to, I mean, look at it. The whole mRNA vaccine. What the heck was that all about, right? Well, the next fight legally is if these things are altering your DNA, you're no longer quote unquote classified as human. Then you're patentable. It's basically a biological genetic equivalent of a Monsanto seed blowing into your soy field, and now Monsanto could sue you because now you're holding their patented stuff. That's exactly the sicko world that these guys want to
slavery.
do. It is slavery. And then financialize that on top of it.
These are slavers, and they think in no other way than enslavement. And they put all the little pissant Yuvals and these others out there.
I'd like to strangle Yuval Harari.
Yeah. It's too bad his mother didn't do it with his own umbilical cord.
Oh, that would have
the old ways. Give me a second. Yeah, I mean, we have got to get back to fundamentals. We are all living in an artificial world in which we, right down to the functioning of the hundreds of trillions of cells in our body, are owned and controlled, enslaved. I'll give you another one, social media. What is that doing? That's enslaving the dopamine, norepinephrine, serotonin production and processing in your nervous system.
Yeah.
They're making vast fortunes off that. How advertising? No. Feeds algorithmic trading. Trading.
The information data
drives
is
up the stocks of these companies, and then so point being is that they're making vast sums off of enslaving us right down to the functioning of our cells and giving us the illusion of freedom. But we're starting to break through it because the same thing's happening with the internet, which is why they're trying to control, and they're doing all out, and they're de-indexed 90% of the internet, right? The reason is because the same thing that happened when the printing press was released is the same thing that's happening now. People start reading. People start connecting with vastly more information, and all of the illusions that were laid down, all these lies that people didn't even realize that they were functioning in, started to come undone. Well, what happened in Europe? 300 years of war, right? It didn't get everybody kumbaya. Everybody was pissed about what had been done and was still being done. And what the financialists do, they use that to break princes. They use that to break princes who had the title to the land and to take them to war so that the princes couldn't say Malone Labe. They couldn't defend themselves, and to jack them up in debts and everything else. Excuse me, it's dry. So they have wrung about as much out of us as they can, and we're waking up to it. Give me a second, guys. Sorry.
No worries. Yeah.
It's all good, man. You want to get a glass of water, go for it.
Yeah, it's actually I do deal with seasonal allergies. My wife has helped me out. She's nutritionist among other things, and that's helped out a lot. But man, sometimes it'll get you in the throat there.
A little bit too much to drink yesterday, so I'm a little dehydrated. So just to be honest, yeah. So We have to get back to first principles, and first principles is the land, and the land belongs to us. And there is a title to the land, and we need to get back to the original title of this land. My understanding, and people can correct me where I'm wrong, but my understanding is that the land of the United States is actually held in a land trust in the city of London.
Correct. That's that whole seed and company thing. And the word seed is spelled in a way as if you're giving up something.
CEDE.
Yeah, seed.
Well, I mean, that just sounds to me like a contract they could use in validation.
I'm hearing something mewling in the background.
It's a cat.
Oh.
Not mine.
No, it's mine.
Oh.
Girl
Right,
cat.
but
the cat is a secret agent from the city of London, and now that we're talking about it,
She's
the
from
cat is
Japan.
disrupting the
We brought
podcast.
her from Japan.
Well, hey, the Bank of Japan's got some roots.
Yeah, so all of this goes back to 1688. All of this goes back to even before that, right? But really everything takes off in the 1600s. This is when this whole financialist system was embedded in as the Peace of Westphalia and the Inglorious Revolution.
Right.
And everything's so in order for us to get back to, actual Englishness, although, enclosure and all that stuff was already happening, but it takes off really in the 1600s. We're going to have to go back to something much older. We're going to have to go back to before we were occupied in 1688.
Mm-hmm.
And then we're going to have to go to contracts, and we're going to have to, titles and rights and privileges, and we're going to have to take it up, and then chart and plot that out from there. Otherwise, we don't even own the United States. The land's not even ours, and they're done with us. They've expended us, and now they're replacing us because they have to take possession.
Yeah.
1688 being the formation of the Bank of England.
1694, but the Inglorious Revolution, where the traitorous nobles and the control of the parliamentarians, the ownership of the parliamentarians, brought the William of Orange over with a Stuart wife, and the Glorious Revolution, which was anything else. It was a fucking coup.
Yeah.
Well, you had to do a coup because the crown, since William owned everything because of the Doomsday Book. So, which was 1088 or something, right? 1086, 1088. So technically in the English system, since the Doomsday Book, all assets and lands are held by the king, and then additional, further titles or subtitles, whatever the hell the terms are given to the nobles, etc. But the king had the master title to everything. Well, when were the colonies set up? 1600s, early 1600s. We're all under that system, right? The United States didn't come along until 170, 180 years later, right?
Interesting.
But
I mean, the first central bank
of the Financialist.
Yeah, and the first central bank at that time, it's that this whole 1600s, the late 1600s, is a very key and pivotal point in human history and Western history in particular. As you were stating, with a lot of events that were occurring at that time in 1688, we also have at the late 1600s, it was the first central bank was created in I think 1668. I think it was the Riksbank in Sweden. That was the first central bank and oldest surviving central bank in the world. So all the culmination of that year has been very, very pivotal. That century is a very pivotal century, a turning point.
Well, and to pull on to connect a few dots here, we're talking about the U.S. land in a contract from the 1600s in the city of London, right? That's what we were saying earlier. Now, can that contract not be considered invalid because we beat them and kicked them out?
Okay,
and
so
declared independence?
until the kind of Malone-Labe period, Malone-Labe event in the 1700s, until such time, the lands were held by either the British East India Company or West India Company, were held by a British company, the share or directly by the Royal Charter, King's Charter. And there's people, again, I'm not a historian on this, but this all plays into this. It's all the same piece of history. But until such time as the Constitution, most of the lands were held by nobles, and then some business interests. But the shareholders, the main shareholders, partners in that companies were actually the nobles. That starts changing in the 1600s as the industrialists and the bankers out of Amsterdam start buying. And who founded New York? New Amsterdam?
Right.
Dutch.
Right. The fucking Dutch. So
not too long after the tulip bulbs.
Yeah. So the 1600s is where humanity went, where human civilization, humanity in the West left reality. It's where the financialists, across that century, really starting in the 1620s, and they've been setting the conditions for that back, all the way through the medieval periods. The 1600s is where the financialists embedded themselves in the great empires, the future great empires of Europe. They had defeated and bankrupted and indebted most all of the princes and kings, and through that took title, maybe didn't take the titles, but took the rights and privileges to the titles due to these complex layers of debts. And they embedded this financialist kill chain and this financialist system, this financialist reality across all, and they've been controlling the education, they've been controlling religion, they've been controlling all of it because they have their own religion, this financialist religion, right? And that's where everything, so in order for us to get, in order for us to not be replaced in our own lands, we have to get back to the actual place where we actually own the lands. And in order to do that, we're going to have to go back to the original titles. This is why the city of London is still as powerful as it is, because it holds those titles.
Yeah, we got to get that out of them.
And we need to get that out of them because it was taken by force in 1688 in a coup that placed a foreigner on the throne. And we've had foreigners on the throne ever since. It doesn't mean that some of these foreigners aren't trying to be good kings of the English-speaking and queens of the English-speaking peoples. But they're got guns to their head every minute of the day.
You say the Saxe-Coburg are not all bad, but
they're not all bad. Neither were the Hanoverians. And in fact, I think King George was playing a chin gigante. I think King George III, I think it was.
Yep.
The king during the quote unquote revolution, which in the US, which wasn't a revolution, it was a title transfer to this fucking financialist. It gave us the illusion of self-rule, but it never gave us self-rule, because you can do whatever you want on top of the land as long as you keep paying rents and building things up. We own the land. So give me a second. I think King George III was trying to help some English peoples break free. Mm-hmm. And if you can have you or any of your family killed, your house guarded any minute, if you ever speak up about any of this, or if you ever go against us, and they'd spent centuries of downward princes, so by that point, nobody's loyal to fucking king or prince, not willing to go to arms to rally to the castle to go kill, the security and the soldiers that are there. They're not there to protect the king. They're there to, just like the fucking Praetorians in Rome, to control and knife to the throat if need be. It's not like they haven't killed them. So I think George III was trying to help out. I think in this confines, because when you're non-compass, you can say all kinds. You can meet with all kinds of people and have all kinds of weird conversations. You're crazy, are you?
Yeah, that was the Gigante thing.
I look at Trump right now. That's the Gigante thing. Look at Trump right now. Look how he's acting. Everybody's like, that's like, didn't they just try to shoot him on live TV? Didn't they kill Kennedy? Didn't they shoot Reagan? Didn't they tell Nixon if he didn't leave, they were going to, that's what he said, right? He said they were trying to jack me. Mm-hmm. Or they're trying to do me like they did Jack, was the actual statement he made.
Yes, that's what it is, yeah.
Right?
Nixon is often maligned and just as often misunderstood. But I'm so if we're going to go back to something that's pre 1688 from a title standpoint, what does that look like for the U.S.?
Right. So we have to adhere to constitutionality because that is the legal framework of our civilization, our people, the greatest expression. Now we're going to have to do some constitutional amendments. We're going to have to fix some holes in our constitution that allows for this type of financialization, the manipulations, the old ways in which the bureaucratic financialist banked and backrolled system has used holes in the Constitution to just enslave us. So we're going to have to fix those. We're going to have to get to some formal title to the lands of to the peoples of these lands that is held in trust in these lands, and nobody else has any rights or privileges to them, either through force of arms or debt. And where this is happening in the world today, the financialists have just expended 1.5 to 1.8 million Ukrainians to try and take the lands of Russia, to try and defeat Russia in order, openly stated claim, right, to break Russia up. And Russians moved across the border and said, Malone Lab, come and take it.
You get what you're saying.
Why?
The land is where the fight is.
Yeah, go ahead.
No, I'm saying the land is first and foremost.
Nothing.
The fight is.
Yes. Everything else above that is a construct. Now, some of them are very comfortable and nice. I've got a nice home and I got nice things, but without the land and the rights and ownership and privileges to the land, you have nothing really.
So
nothing.
we're discussing
the illusion of something.
Do you think
sorry guys, just to warn you guys, there's a little bit of a delay going on, so people might be talking over each other and it's not on purpose. And I think it's the internet connection thing. But V, go ahead with what you were going to say.
Is this the reason why now we're seeing a push within the United States? And EM, what's your opinion on this? Within the United States, we're starting to see a push where many state governors are coming forward and saying, hey, you know what? Here's the deal, guys. This whole thing called property tax, maybe we need to get rid of it. Suddenly, that's a talking point. Suddenly, it's being pushed out there, but like, hey, the idea of you paid off your house, but then you're paying a state year after year, and that goes up every year. Property tax is kind of egregious. Maybe we should get rid of it. Do you think there's some connection to that?
Okay, so give me a second.
Yeah.
There are court cases right now across this whole country where county governments were sending assessors out and jacking the valuation of property up.
Yes.
Just specifically so that they can increase property taxes all over this country. It's been happening for years, but there's about it now. It's all coming out in the open, etc. So it's a great question. It ties into this lawsuit stuff I was talking about, where the governments have been jacking up property values specifically so that they can increase property taxes, and doing so in certain specific neighborhoods, like Republican, conservative neighborhoods, and doing it in such a place, not only they jack up property taxes, but they jack them up so high that they then can dispossess and confiscate the property.
Correct.
Right. So what's happening here? What's happening is that we are the illusion of ownership, the illusion of freedom and rights are now becoming so obvious to even the normies as a lie and an illusion that the financialists who own the bureaucracies, because government, what is government? Government is the property management company for the financialists.
That's all it is.
That's all government is. It's the property management company. Just like, this complex I live in here has got a property management company, right? That's all government is. It's the property managers and the maintenance crew, right? For the financialists. Well, it's all coming out. We're all getting, seeing this, and they're scared. The financialists are scared because we still, and that's why they're flooding our countries, et cetera, to try and dispossess us, They don't want to take us on in a full fight. One, because they're estrogenic cowards.
Correct.
Right. But the reason they were trying to accelerate everything, collapse everything, flood, they just was 1,000 more into the UK yesterday. The reason they're trying to do that is because if this goes to a fight, we'll win. And we'll win pretty heavily, and they won't be able to get any assets. Won't be, we'll destroy.
Got it. Absolutely. That makes sense. EM, we're about at the end of the program here. I'd love for you to give a closing statement, and I want to have you back on next week to further expand upon this as we take this thing apart layer by layer, as we start peeling apart the onion, man. This is like critical information.
Well, I'll make sure to not be hungover next week.
And hopefully your internet is working again.
Yeah. Well, we got the phone to work. So So give me a second.
Yeah.
Everything that these people do is legal within the confines of the legal structures.
Correct.
Everything, because their entire reality is the magic is built on magic, and the magic is contracts.
Yeah.
The fundamental reality, though, is it's all made up, first off. And two, there's nothing in the world that's real if it can't be physically enforced. Because the only real currency in history is physical violence.
Is the what?
The only real currency.
Oh, you're breaking up, EM.
Yeah, you're breaking up pretty bad.
Yeah.
We got you back. You said the only currency in history is
is gold.
The only real fundamental currency is violence.
Ooh, okay.
That's the only real currency of a people, is their willingness to use violence to protect and secure their own assets, people, and lands.
Yes.
Everything else is an illusion. Now, they're beneficial illusions, right? Very helpful illusions. We were able to do a lot of things, but down underneath where things get this type of just slaying and statement, reality.
Yeah, you're breaking up, brother.
Mutilating kids.
Yeah,
sorry.
But no, that's a powerful statement.
My internet's back up.
Yeah, definitely. But that's a powerful statement to close out on. The only real currency we have is physical force. The only real currency we have as a people, as a nation, is violence. And this is the reason why the financialists have a monopoly on it, or like you to think that they have a monopoly on it.
Well, yeah, if they had a true monopoly on it, then Afghanistan would not be Afghanistan right now.
Yeah. Exactly.
Turn my camera off here. Does that work better?
That's actually going to help. But, I should have suggested that a while ago. That actually helps out a lot.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
so
EM, you
said it, V. You had it. You said it absolutely right. So the only fundamental currency when reality gets this warped, where they're generally mutilating kids, and they're pumping people full of hormones and drugs, and pedophiles are in the highest offices, and they're outright stealing everything. When it gets to this, the only currency that's real is our ability to use violence to prevent them from physically taking our lands and assets and our lives.
Yeah, and we also have to be careful of those who would try to subvert us into violence towards another means in the name of protecting our lands too, because you can, if you simply go with, hey man, I could just go fight, then you might end up with the Arab Spring, and you now have been manipulated.
Correct. So they don't want it to go to violence. They don't, but if they do, they want us to go ethnic violence.
Yes.
They want us to go kill brown people or whatever, yellow people or whatever people they tell us, or ideological people. It's so that we're not coming for them. If I was to have a war against these people, I'd burn their buildings down. I don't have to kill them.
Well, this
I
goes
don't
to
have to
the
kill them. It's just your assets are your theft of all these assets. We can rebuild, and we'll rebuild without you.
Yeah. And this interesting you should say that about racial violence, because that is what's being pushed, and it's been pushed for a long time.
Yes.
And if you think about it, this goes to your conversation. It's kind of a two-parter here. Number one, it's a civilizational it's a fulcrum to break civilization, because civilization is not a race, right? It's multiple ethnicities. We know that. And we can maybe delve into that next week. The other end of it is, if you look at all the social media and everything else right now, we are now allowed to talk about Israel when we were not before. We're now allowed to talk about, like, if you look at Twitter, you got a lot of people saying, straight up saying black people are bad. Like, I mean, they're saying brown people are bad. You know what I mean? They're pointing to things and saying things. And, that's not a conversation I care to have here, but the fact that it's just kind of being not only allowed to be said, which, okay, I'm for freedom of speech. It's being promoted. It's being pushed, this whole thing on Twitter. There are accounts that are pushing the fight between the races. And it's a really simple thing.
Yes.
If you are trying to ruin a civilization, then you must have that civilization fight itself. So if we're going to if we're going to say be ready to fight, we have to beware of those who are telling us to fight and why they're telling us to fight. We gotta be real clear on that.
And what are we fighting for? The only we should be fighting for lands, our lands, and our people and our lives.
That's it.
Arguments to this or that.
We're losing EM. We're losing you, bud.
Yeah, we'll wrap this up. EM, we got to have you back on next week, brother.
All right. Appreciate it, guys. Sorry about that.
Absolutely. No, it's all good. It's all good. Yeah. Great show. A lot of great information. I recommend people go back and listen to the show again, take some notes. Let this percolate in your minds, and and be back here next week. EM will schedule out with you and have you back on as we peel the layers of this financialized kill chain. And with that being said, Cowboy, take it away.